Today's podcast is brought to you by StrongHeartAcademy.com, where no heart is no victory. We are also brought to you by BJJ To Go. If you want to build your game and learn jiu-jitsu, go to bjjtogo.com. Third thing we're brought to you by is Rat Bat. Got rats? Want to kill bats? Kill them with a rat bat. Fourth thing we're brought to you by is hot dog flavored water ingredients. If you want to add it to your smoothie, hot dog flavor ingredient. Let's try this again. I did a whole podcast and didn't record any of it. So today I want to talk about sacrifice, and I saw Kyle's thing. I've been wanting to talk about sacrifice. I haven't listened to Kyle's yet, so this is just going to be my thoughts. I do intend to listen to Kyle's podcast he did, I think, with Gustavo Dantes or something like that. I'm sure it's awesome, and he would know a lot about sacrifice because I've seen that guy sacrifice. First I want to talk about like the understanding of what sacrifice is, and I don't think a lot of people have a good understanding of it. I really like Jordan Peterson, and he's a polarizing character. Some people either love him or hate him. It doesn't seem like a huge middle ground in there. But he had this concept once that he was talking about in a biblical concept of humans and the evolution of their thought processes with myth and his version of what he believes myth, I think, and sacrifice. And, in the Bible, people talk about sacrificing. You think of like animals and sacrificing to cover sin, and then like the human sacrifice of Jesus Christ and the resurrection and all those things. And he's just talking about like how humans had to come up with the concept of sacrifice and understanding through consciousness what time is and time management, because animals don't really do that. So you'll see sometimes squirrels will save nuts for the winter, right? But this is like a short concept of the ability to do that, and they only have that one way of doing it, where humans understood they can plan ahead using avatars in their head of what it would be if I sacrificed. And then with mathematics, you can do even further. So like we can do farming, so I don't eat the grain today. I save X amount of it so that I can plant it for the next season, and so on. Don't eat today or eat less today so you have more tomorrow. And that's the understanding of sacrificing. I'm sacrificing my instant pleasure today to receive pleasure later, or a prolonged pleasure where maybe this instant pleasure is going to last, it's instant, but it won't last long. And then later on, you could be basically starving to death. So it was an important step in evolution as far as like humanity. But we've taken it farther than that and understanding the concept of time and getting better at things. And, for myself as jiu-jitsu, I don't know how many nights I've given up hanging out with friends to do jiu-jitsu instead, even when I didn't have my own gym, when I was just training because I wanted to be better. And sometimes I think, man, I should be way better for the amount of sacrifice I've done, and for the time that I've put into this thing. But I did make it to a black belt at least, and I do have my own gym. When I started my gym, there was the sacrifice of my family, honestly. And I kind of talked about that with my wife the other night, not being around with my firstborn. And when he was born, I think I went back to work the next day, and I think that might be more common than a lot. But, I did landscaping, and I'd have to get up at 4:30 in the morning, and then I would go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. So doing landscaping, I'd get home maybe 2, and then I would come back and I would take a shower, and then I would go to my gym, and I would stay there till 10 o'clock at night, and then I would go to bed and then get up in the morning. So when my son got up in the middle of the night, my wife got up. Now part of that is also because I can't breastfeed, but she would have to get up, and that's what she did, and that was her sacrifice for her son, and then my sacrifice was not being a part of that, and trying to make sure that we have a business and we can stay fed. And that's hard for some people to understand or even to do, understanding that, like, and even sacrificing. People used to tell me for years, like, Mike, you're burning at both ends. I had one student used to tell me that all the time, Mike, you're burning at both ends. Eventually, you can't burn the candle at both ends. You'll just wear out. And, I cut back, but only after years and years. I was doing that schedule for a solid 3 years straight of every day, 4:30 to 10. Sometimes in the winter it would be later, maybe as late as 7:30, so 7:30 to 10. But those are insane hours. People go working 9 to 5. I was working 5 to 10, more like, or 5 to 9 even. That's insane hours of work. But I was able to do it for a long time, and continue to train myself. And then even before that, when I was doing landscaping, I was living on my own. I had no money. So at a certain point I started teaching just so that I could pay for training, because I just didn't have enough money anymore. I was driving an hour to train every day one way, and then I was only making like $9 an hour. I was living on my own. I had a car. I had to eat. I would eat peanut butter and jelly. So I was sacrificing even my health probably to do what I wanted to do. And a lot of people just aren't willing to do those things. A lot of people would come to me before and used to say, hey, I want to be a champion. And I would ask something really hard of them right away, to see if they would do it. Are you willing to go run, go out, come back, go run 5 miles? Well, I don't run before. Well, let's see. Go give me 100 push-ups. Yeah, I can't do that. It's like, why can't you do that? You don't want to sacrifice being sore tomorrow. If you can't sacrifice that, then that's just the beginning. And then we would have training on Fridays, and everyone's like, why do you do comp training on Fridays? Why do you do comp training Fridays? Let's enjoy on Fridays. No, because you need to sacrifice. I'm sorry, but you're sacrificing your Friday night to do really hard training with me. And very few people are willing to do that, Very few people are willing to do that. They want to go chase girls and drink and all that kind of stuff on Friday nights. And it's like, well, you're going to sacrifice your health for one thing, and your money, because that stuff's not cheap. Might as well sacrifice with me and get stronger and better and get good at this craft that you say you want to be a champion at. But like, people say they want a champion, they just want the reward. They don't want the work. The work is the sacrifice, giving up those things to achieve what you want. When you have a savings, it's sacrificing little things like Starbucks, and little creature comforts are sacrificed in order to save that little bit of money that over time that compounds, But that's what sacrifice is, doing little bit of not playing video games and doing push-ups pays off later on. The video games never pay off. It's instant pleasure. Yes, it's fun. And it's not that you can't do it, but if you only do that and don't do the other thing, don't do the work, you're just not going to get the rewards. The rewards come from sacrifice and being able to do the hard work. There was a boxer, and I don't remember who it is. It might be Bernard Hopkins, but I don't remember who it was. But he said it's hard to get up early and go running when you're sleeping in silk sheets. And what he means by that is, like, when you're poor and you're living on a mattress or on someone's couch, it's easy to get up early and go run knowing that, I want to be a champion to make this money. Once you've already achieved that, once you already got the money, you're living in silk sheets and you got a beautiful lady in the bed with you and you got that beautiful house and all this stuff. You don't want to get up. Nobody's forcing you to get up. Only self-discipline gets you out of bed to get that done. And then in the back of your head, it tells you, enjoy the pleasure, because we want to avoid pain. It's just how humans are. So you got to tell yourself, understanding that the sacrifice is pleasure, because you're going to it's delayed gratification is all it is. It's delayed. So sacrifice is delaying the later gratification that you're going to get from the work that was put in. And, I don't know how many people I've had that was just so talented, but just weren't willing to sacrifice. Sometimes when you're super talented, you've never had to sacrifice. And then But the problem at the high level of anything, everyone has talent and sacrificed. There's nobody at the top at a field that didn't sacrifice and wasn't also talented. So talented is only going to go so far, because at some point the other guy or girl is going to do the work that you weren't willing to do. Run up the mountain and practice the guitar for so many hours. I remember Duane Allman is my favorite guitarist. He died, long time. He didn't even do a lot of work. Even he was a slide guitar master though, and he said, when I first started playing guitar, it was like an hour because I wanted to sound, better than my brother, because his brother was Greg Allman. And then he's like, then we would have like these small gigs. So I was like, well, I want to sound pretty good for Friday night. So I got to do like 3-4 hours of practice. So we practice 3-4 hours a day. Then it was like, well, then we're going to start traveling. Well, if I start traveling, it's like 5 hours, 6 hours a day. And then he says, you get to the point where I'm doing 8 to 10 hours of guitar practice a day, and that's why they were able to do these 10-minute jam sessions of like that were just just from their consciousness, not even practiced per se. They would just go on these things, but you have to be so proficient to be able to just go and play like that. Like you can't just there's no way of doing that without sacrifice. Like he had to put the time in to be able to make it look effortless, and then there's the family sacrifice too. Like I've seen these people that in professionals sports that they sacrifice their family for the professional sports. Now, part of it is in your mind is you're like, well, I'm providing for my family. For sure, you're providing for your family, but sometimes your family doesn't see it that way, and then there's no way of taking away the things that they got and saying, oh, would you still feel this way if we had no money? It's the catch-22 of being a provider, I guess I would say, but it's a hard balance. I mean, there's going to be some sort of sacrifice. Somebody's going to sacrifice. I'm going to make less money, but more family time, or less family time and more money, So then you got to go, oh, what's enough money that it's okay, and what's not enough money that I have to work harder to get it. And that's called balance. But sacrifice is going to be made somewhere down the line. You got to sacrifice. There's no way of getting around it. And you see these as a business owner. People are always propositioning me with emails, phone calls, and even coming in and talking to me of get rich quick schemes. In martial arts, it's like crazy. Like, get this program, get this blah 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 blah. It's all BS. It's all BS. I'm telling you right now, for all you martial art owners out there, my old instructor used to run into these things all the time, and he was spending so much money on these stupid programs. Some of them had some value in them, but not what they're asking you to pay for to value. These are like tricks that I learned for free, and they're not even tricks. They take work, Marketing is not, it's not just like, oh, it just happens, So whenever it's like, get rich quick, that's what I hear in my head. Get rich quick, which is BS, is what I hear. Not oh, look how rich you can be. People buy into that. You get the same thing for like weight loss and fitness goals. Like, oh, just take this cool pill, and it's basically speed. You're still sacrificing. You're just sacrificing your heart, because you're going to have a heart condition for taking speed for years on end to try to lose weight, versus eating right and exercising. It's not rocket science, but it does take sacrifice. Consuming less calories than you burn, or burning more calories than you consume. That's what it is. The better the calories, the better you'll feel. The better the things you put in your body, for sure. But like, you can't eat sugar and go think that you're going to perform at a high level all day long. I've done that many times, and like, man, why am I so tired? Because you ate garbage, So now you sacrifice your performance for the gratification of eating donuts. And trust me, I love donuts. So, just think these things over when you're trying to set these goals. And even for myself, when I try to set goals for myself or new projects that I'm trying to do, am I willing to sacrifice? Because some of these things could take time out of my budget too. Even with the podcast, like it's expensive. I had to buy these microphones, recorders, editing software, super camera, time to learn these things. That is all sacrifice. I had to make sure that I was willing to do that and following it through. It's easy to start a hobby and you just don't get any level of anything out of it, and you just basically wasted time. You sacrifice this for zero gain. You should be sacrificing for some sort of goal in mind with the sacrifice. Sacrifice isn't just sacrifice. No. Sacrifice is for an end goal. Even in Christianity, you're sacrificing the instant, what maybe sin would give you, what you would believe is the pleasure of sin. And you're lying to yourself if you think sin isn't fun. I mean, that's is why you do it. It's pleasurable. And then the sacrifice is for something else. And then hopefully you get past your ego level of that, and you transcend that. And even like Buddhism would even give you that concept of like transcending your needs and your ego. But that's more complex, I guess, concepts. But the sacrifice, even in Christianity, is an end reward. Even if heaven didn't exist and you lived a sinless life, your life would look a lot better than it is in a sinful life. Even though it's fun to do those things, someone that doesn't lie, take advantage of other people, is going to have better relationships in their life, period. Like, even if they die and you die and there's nothing afterwards, like, you would still have a better life, in my opinion. So the sacrifice is worth it regardless. But there's still a reward. There's a reward, eternal life is your belief if you're a Christian. Anyway, hopefully this sheds light on this, and you can understand these concepts. So when you're setting your goals, you're, again, one of the things that you need to be adding in that list of goals, besides what are the goals to reach the goals and setting them, writing them down and telling other people and setting time frames, is, am I willing to sacrifice for this goal? Something's got to give. Am I willing to give up the thing that I want, one thing I want for another? And if you're not, then you got to move on. You're just going to be wasting your time. So, God bless and peace.
Let me talk for just a second, help me feel that sense of rhythm. Find the meanings in our bearings and discover this position as a stage along the way. Another rung to the ladder, either stalling or you're climbing and not